Jim, you know what that means? It's time for the double main event, or was it a double main event?
Well,
Two more big matches on this big show.
yeah, there were two more big main events. Okay, I'm going to try to give some unbiased and honest criticism. And if people don't want to hear it, some people may not want to hear it. That's their problem. That's their fault. I'm just offering it without trying to charge for it or anything. Will Ospreay and old Kyle Fletcher there are good things about both these guys. And let's go with Kyle first. He is physically looking amazing. I mean, he has probably been doing calisthenics in his sleep since he got this spot. He's got the size. He's still so young. He needs some fucking hair. And I don't know if the Pippi Longstocking kind of thing he had it before they shaved it off was the answer, but he needs some kind of hair because he's still a young guy and, he's still finding his personality. But he's a tremendous athlete and he can do a lot of these moves. I don't know whether he's trainable or coachable. He seems like a person who's working his ass off, so it would seem like he is. I think he's probably being trained and coached by the wrong people. Is the promos, the voice, the accent? If he grows up and gets a little older and gets a little bass in his voice and some more conviction and just oomph to him, have I said enough good things about Kyle? Is that an honest appraisal in your opinion?
I think you're giving an honest appraisal here. You're not just ripping him for no reason or anything. Yeah.
Will Ospreay. Again, he's the top babyface pretty much in a company that's, consistently appreciated by the people, and they haven't turned on him yet. He's very athletic. Same thing. It doesn't look as good as Kyle physically, but he's very athletic and he looks fine physically. And he may be getting older in wrestler years, but he still looks like a young guy. And he's got the curly hair. And he's got fire and enthusiasm. And he's a snazzy babyface when he works. The same thing I said about Ricochet and Swerve, when Ospreay works with somebody who's a worker, who's not going to compete with him in the fucking uneven parallel bars, then Ospreay becomes the snazzy young babyface using these wild, unorthodox moves and escapes and flips backwards to counter that you don't normally see as a part of the match to outdo the fucking guy who may be bigger or meaner or more powerful. Then it becomes a story of the thing instead of just flipping about because you can do it. You're in a video game. He's one of those guys. If he's got somebody like that, then he can use it to his advantage. And he's got the unfortunate speaking voice and the accent. But if he's trainable and coachable, not in the moves, but in the psychology of wrestling and in promos, a professional organization, aka the WWE, would slow him down a little bit in some of the promos where people can stand him, not have him drone on endlessly about shit that only the most diehard internet mark even knows what he's talking about, and make it part of his bubbly European personality. There's all things that could be tweaked, but both of them need somebody to fucking book them, because left to their own devices, which had to be what this was, it was every indie wrestler's fucking wet dream combined with a part of this match that, if it was presented in any wrestling territory anywhere in wrestling, at one point in time, it would have led to a riot. Not a good riot like the fans are mad at the heel, but a bad riot like we want our fucking money back and this is bullshit, and it killed the town. But now, because In part, this is the audience we talked about that watches to laugh at bullshit, in part because there's so much of that people just roll their eyes at it. People just overlook this type of thing, but the psychology is there for normal folks that they don't get it and they don't want to get it. This turns people to fuck off. Now that I've prefaced, I will start explaining in granular detail. Brian, are you with me? Maybe not.
I mean, I'm with you in terms, I'm listening to your assessment of them, yeah.
I mean, are you with me as far as let's break this thing down here?
Well, let me just say, this was one of the most this is the matches I've ever seen. You know, we make fun of Owens and Zayn for always wanting to do their indie stuff. This was like the Ulysses of fucking...
This was Owens and Zayn if they were 15 years younger and either one of them had a good physique.
I'd be amazed. I mean, it would be amazing if these guys weren't really badly banged up after this, because they did a lot of highly physical stuff that could have been the finish, and then they kept going. This was like this was like an event with one match, except there were other matches, because they did everything you could ever possibly do in this match.
Yes. Every you pretty much seen it. This was
forever, over and over. It just went on and on. How long was it?
It was, hold on, I've got the notes here. I don't know how many pages. There's the screwdrivers. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on. It's 30 minutes bell to bell, plus the entrances, and then they meandered around a little bit. So let's... First of all, they said it was Ospreay's first cage match. He's been wrestling 15 years or whatever the fuck. He's never had a cage match. He never worked for anybody that could afford a cage before. I said again, I assessed everybody. I said, did you think my assessment of Ospreay was fair, halfway legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think he's the very best, the most spectacular in the world, but I think in terms of fitting into a system beyond just do what you like, your assessment was very fair.
Okay, well, they started out... And you could almost say, well, for the first 2 minutes, they're trying to, I guess, slow this thing down and pace themselves. I said they look like they're pacing themselves for a long match, which, again, for a cage match, co-main event, should be. But people have seen 11 matches in 4.5 hours so far. But then, boom, suddenly they started opening up, and Ospreay, by 5 minutes in, is bleeding like a stuck hog. And I wrote, why did they let the girls do it first? If you're going to have a cage match with this big grudge between one of your top young heels and your top baby face, and they're going to be bleeding and they're going to be doing all this stuff 2 matches before you have girls bleeding, no selling pile drivers, and rolling around in broken glass. So... The Ospreay and Kyle, they worked hard. Their shit looks good when they do their things, but in between the chops or the stunts or anything that's a big bump or makes noise, the crowd was nodding. Or just, I don't know if they were nodding or just sitting there staring at it, but everything had been done. And I think I wrote, even I would have liked this a lot better 2 hours ago. Because they were at least somewhat athletic and nobody had jumped the shark yet. And then Kyle took one of the turnbuckle pads off. But Ospreay dropped him face first on it and then boomeranged him into the cage. And boy, that was nice. And then the camera was off Kyle forever while he got his color, which I understand now that they're so shell-shocked by what they've done with Moxley, where he just cuts himself in front of God and everybody. But there's people that have completed a gallbladder operation in less time than they keep the fucking camera off these guys. But then they go back and forth with the big moves, and in between, everybody will lay immobile. And then they exchanged kicks to the head deal where they grabbed the guy, Brian, by the back of the head and bend him over and then rapid fire and very lightly kick at the area of the guy's head and say that they're kicking him in the head. What do they call that besides fake?
Punt? Soccer kick?
No. It's some Japanese guy.
Oh.
Did it. I assume maybe he did it better. That's why people have stolen it.
Baragon?
But it's
Mothra?
It's ridiculous. They're not only are they not kicking with any force, and they're doing it quick like that to the guy's forehead while he's bending over, not registering the kicks. And if somebody had me by one hand in my hair and had me bent over at the waist and was kicking me in the head, the first thing I'd think of to do, maybe try to block that fucking leg. Or maybe just sit down and get away from it completely. But they're just leaning there, and they're not. Kyle whiffed him, missed completely. And then Ospreay hit him with a forearm that actually looked good. That was one for the night. Looked like it was knocked his dick stiff. But then they do the big moves where they're so athletic, and they do simple shit where it looks so phony. And then here comes Mark Davis out with a duffel bag, not his ass, not his voluminous, bulbous ass, but a separate bag of duffel. And he pulls bolt cutters out of it, and he cuts the lock and gets in the cage in front of multiple referees. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what would have killed a town. Yes, you've always seen a heel somehow get in a cage or come through the floor of the thing or slam the door behind him and lock it so that the referees can't get in or whatever, and do an angle at the end of a match where it's quick and it's chaos and people are trying to stop it. But they're saying, oh, it's no disqualification, so it's because it's a cage match, so we can't do anything. That is what people would have said, bullshit. The Heat would have, if the referees are standing there watching a guy cut the lock off the cage, get in the cage, start helping another guy. If the referees are not trying to do anything about it, then that means that they, by proxy, they approve of it. And by proxy, that means that the promotion approves of it. And that's what would have caused people that wanted to see their fucking hero win. And as we've covered many times on this program, many of them were willing to get in the ring and help. They're sitting at just the average ticket buying fan. If they watched that, they would say, well, fuck this promotion. My guy is never going to get a fucking break. I'm not coming anymore. It would have killed a fucking town. You just can't do that. He gets in the ring, slides a chair in, he didn't get in the ring then. He slid the chair in and handed in the duffel bag, and then Ospreay slammed the door on his head. So he's down at the side. More on him in a minute. Then Ospreay gets out of the duffel bag a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire and hits Kyle in the stomach and in the back, and then starts raking it across his face. Okay. You've got a baseball bat, much less wrapped in barbed wire, in a fucking fight with a guy. How is he going to come back from you just hit him twice? And why are you raking his face? Just hit him in the head. You've won right there. No problem. But no, Fletcher begs off and Ospreay milks it. And Kyle puts his old armband on. They're the logo of their old tag team, the undisputed king of the eras of the generation. I don't know what the fuck they were. The empirical data. Kyle puts his old armband on, but Will gives him the finger and swings the bat, and Kyle hits Will in the balls, and Will drops the bat, and they go another 11 minutes. I don't want to spoil anything, but babyface had the fucking heel that's fucked him around down, bleeding, and had a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat in his hands, and it took him another 11 minutes to beat this motherfucker. What a goddamn feckless pussy they have drawn the picture to make this guy out to be. So Kyle then took the armband off, wiped his blood all over it, and stuck it in Ospreay's mouth. And then he picked the bat up and swung it and missed, and Ospreay hit the fucking elbow and another big move and covered him. And that's where Mark Davis came in the ring and made the save. And Davis, by the way, now is bleeding too. So why did they fucking let the girls do that horse shit? The torture porn segment of the program. So now all these stupid fuckers are all bleeding. They've all had possession of a baseball bat. None of them can win the fucking fight. And then what happened to the baseball bat after that, Brian? Do you remember seeing what happened to the baseball bat?
I believe the referees took it in the back and checked it for cork.
I think, maybe you might be right, because I don't see any other notes of use of the baseball. So they just decided to start having a fight without the bat now that they've had the bat.
The bat was just a conduit to get the barbed wire in the ring. You're focusing too much on the bat. The bat was almost like a barbed wire holder to bring the barbed wire. The bat
was the MacGuffin.
That's right.
So Davis made the save and got the sleeper on Ospreay and then just dropped him. And both heels, Davis and Kyle, went to double team Ospreay, but he came out of it and whacked Davis with the chair and then kicked him out of the cage and closed the door. But they'd cut the lock off, so I guess now we're on the honor system. And then Ospreay hit a Cody cutter on Kyle off the side of the cage and got a 2 count. And we continue. And Ospreay wraps barbed wire around his own arm. And for all you Southern boys out there who have had extensive experience with barbed wire, stringing barbed wire, trying to climb over barbed wire, imagine what a stupid son of a bitch you'd have to be to wrap it around your own arm and hit somebody with it. But he did.
If only he had that bat.
See, that would have solved everything. He wraps the barbed wire around his own arm and he chases Kyle to the top of the cage, and they get set down on the top of the cage, but Kyle has pulled out a screwdriver, a bright fluorescent colored screwdriver, and Kyle stabs Ospreay in the head with the screwdriver. And then he gets down and he stabs him in the head with the screwdriver twice more. And then he gives him a brain buster. And then he gives him a brain buster on a steel chair. Cover. 2 count. What the Then Kyle gets back in the duffel bag, which now resembled like a magician's fucking thing, where he's pulling a fucking goddamn battleship out of a hat. And he dumps out 10,000 thumbtacks in the ring. More fake kicks to the head in the manner and style in which I described earlier. And he whiffed those too. And then Ospreay rolled up and gave Kyle a Styles Clash into the thumbtacks. Face and chest first. Cover. 2 count. Then they climb to the top. And by the way, I'm going through this a lot fucking faster than it happened because it may sound exciting to you, but in between this ridiculous, childish fucking sideshow geek nonsense that they were perpetrating was a lot of fucking dead time. Then they climbed back to the top of the cage and fought over the screwdriver. And Will stabbed Kyle in the head. And then, if you told a top babyface in any company in the history of wrestling, we're going to have you hit this guy with a baseball bat a couple times, hit him with a chair a couple times, stab him in the head with a screwdriver after having been fighting him for over 20 minutes. And then he's going to take over on you. They would have, what the fuck are you, you son of a bitch? You would have been. So then they were up there and they both carefully and in slow motion assisted each other gingerly to stand on top of the cage so that both of them could carefully at the same time on the count of 3 backflip off of it into a Spanish fly. And neither one Spanish, and they didn't fly either. They hit the ground. But there was no cover on that. And who gives that move to who, the Spanish fly? The Ospreay was giving this to Kyle, wasn't he?
Yeah, but okay, he took it worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just fucks up both guys, but, you know, theoretically, the one that was intended to. But there was no cover because Kyle just got up on his knees and screamed in a high-pitched squeal that sounded much like a police body cam video of a domestic disturbance, said, "I fucking hate you, you son of a bitch." And so Ospreay hit him with that elbow that he couldn't get out of the way of because he was too busy screaming that he hated him. But then he didn't cover him after he hit him with his elbow finish. Then he grabbed him and hooked him up and gave him the dreaded tiger driver into the thumbtacks. And then he covered him 1, 2, 3. 30 fucking minutes. And again, the top babyface got a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, hit the guy multiple times. It took him only 11 more minutes to beat the fucking guy. I think maybe I'm scared of Kyle at this point. He's the most indestructible man in the world.
It's like Jason
This
Voorhees.
he just keeps on coming. But it was worse to me than the girls' match because the girls' match was, I mean, it exposed wrestling as phony and it was in horrible taste and no sponsors don't want to be involved in this shit. And it drives off all but these, you know, goofy internet mark fans. But I'm more offended at these guys as a professional because they could do so much better with any restraint and any control and any guidance and anybody to sit them down and say, I don't give a fuck how far you can jump. You don't know what the fuck you're doing when it comes to putting a goddamn show or a match together. And I am the booker and I will tell you to do this, that, and the other thing. And you fill it in with color in the goddamn manner in which I like, and we'll all get along fine. Instead, they got a guy that's out there going, oh gosh, you guys jump so far. Do anything you want to do. So I'm offended as a professional. If I were a painter, not talking fences and houses, I'm talking art. And somebody just took a green paint enema and shit a landscape and tried to sell it to somebody, I would be offended because I was a painter, an artist. It's my line of work. If I were a singer and somebody recorded a cat being disemboweled and released it as a single and tried to sell it to people, I'd be offended. And if I were a carpenter and you were a lady, then I'd be offended if you built a house with no doors and windows in it and tried to sell it to somebody. It's just an affront to the profession that is not anything remotely based on what these fucking dipshits are doing. And it makes it look phony and it makes it look stupid and it makes it look low rent and it makes the people in it look like complete goofs. And it doesn't say a lot for the people sitting there watching this shit. So I'm offended as a professional. Are you offended as a talented amateur?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm offended. The only thing I really had a problem where I wouldn't even say offended, but I just hate it, and especially the way it was used here, the screwdriver. You know, it was a throwback to all the other times they use it. But you see him stab the guy in the head with it. Why isn't he dead? Why isn't he impaled? Anything. I hate the screwdriver stuff. I knew this wasn't going to be a classic match. I knew this wasn't going to build. I knew this was going to just be balls to the wall. Let's do everything we can. Main event be damned. Let's do every single thing we can.
Well, the main event had already been damned.
But they did everything here. I enjoyed it. Because again, I kind of knew it was exactly what I expected it to be. Not that I expected all the spots, but this kind of match is what I expected. It's what I expect out of these two.
But you don't have to. You shouldn't. You don't have to.
I don't
They're
disagree
better
with
than
you.
that. They have.
I don't
I don't know
disagree.
about Ospreay's potential for learning him anything different at this point, but Kyle is young and he could be reformed. And you could see him in the WWE program climbing the ladder and being one of the best athletes and hopefully finding a personality.
So who's there in AEW that's going to sit him down and talk to him and tell him stuff he doesn't want to hear? It's not going to be
Nobody.
Don Callis. Who's it going to be?
Nobody apparently, because they've all either, the ones that know have drunk the Kool-Aid and are hanging on to suckle at the teat of the billionaire boy child. And the ones that don't know any better just do the same shit that they always do with the same people they always do it with. And if you always do what you always did, then you always get what you always got.
Hey, here's a question for you, and we'll get the answer probably by the end of the week. All kidding aside, actually, serious question. What do you think Dave Meltzer is going to give this match? How many stars over 5 will this get?
You have to get an extra quarter star per stabbing, don't you?
So how many that'd
be like 7.
All right. I'm going to say this is going to be between 6 and 7 stars. I think that's what he'll give it. Or it could be the first 8-star match. Who knows?
This is the kind of thing that he loves because the young kids that he aspires to be one day when he's even older than he is now, and he's older than me, they love it. So he loves it because he has to love it because they have to love him. And love is somehow involved. And just, if not love, then definitely somebody's jacking off.
Well, I told you earlier, a lot of AEW fans love this pay-per-view event, although it seemed like the love ended at this point, even though there was more of the pay-per-view to go. Based on what I've seen, the feedback from the people who really enjoy AEW, the love fest ended with Ospreay versus Fletcher.